Discuss attorney and former prosecutor Randolph Rice and criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci, both joining us on this Tuesday morning. First of all, yesterday was a heartbreaker. We watched the state bring, and hey, let's face it, this case is a heartbreaker when you have a victim like we have with baby Evelyn. Initial thoughts, Randolph, to you on what the jury had to endure, be exposed to yesterday, and how it may affect the case and may help the prosecution because it is just so heinous.
Sure, anytime these gruesome cases come up, it's very difficult for jurors to listen to and see the evidence. You know, bringing that trash can out, bringing that onesie out, bringing out that aluminum foil. That puts that visualization in the minds of the jurors so that they can see exactly how heinous this crime was and really paint that picture, which the prosecution is trying to do, is paint that picture of what a monster she is. Yeah.
Mario, I know you're actually involved in a case involving the death of a child right now, and you know, without going into specifics of the case you're involved with, how does an allegation like that affect a jury? And I would assume it's much harder for the defense when you have a child who's dead at the end of the day.
So a defendant is already behind the 8 ball once he starts a trial. I mean, you're a defendant, you're already charged, you're already indicted, and now you're going to add to that the fact that the victim is an infant that, you know, was tortured and abused and died. So you have big issues here with the jury. You have big issues once you walk into a court with the child case. And I've tried many of these cases, and they're very, very difficult. Very difficult. You need to pick a good jury. That's probably step one, is to pick a good jury.
Yeah, and you need a client that maybe doesn't lie a lot, because that's what we watched in this case. And yesterday, the jury saw more of these police interviews where she changed her story. At one point, she starts blaming mom. Take a listen.
Why did you only call your mom? We need to know that.
I think she had Evelyn.
You think she has Evelyn? You think she has Evelyn, or you know?
I don't know she does, because she wouldn't tell me.
Well, okay. What makes you think she has Evelyn?
Just because the way she's been acting, stuff like that.
Randolph, it's one thing to have committed a crime like this if in fact she did. She's only, this is alleged at this point. But then to lie about it, it can turn a jury, can it not, from sadness and maybe a little empathy as a young mother, what happened, you want to know, but then if they are, which is happening in this case, they're watching this defendant lie, try to blame other people, try to pin this on loved ones, a boyfriend, the father of the child, and now mom. How does that play?
Well, what probably happened was that she, I'm guessing, again, like you said, Ted, she's innocent until proven guilty, but she thought, hey, listen, I won't say anything, and that will be my story, is I just don't know. And then when she got pressed by detectives and by other individuals, she thought probably to herself, I need to start making up a story. The problem is that when you're telling a lie, your story is not something in your mind that you can remember, so you're having to create things. And the more you talk, the less you remember about the previous facts. And it happens all the time when we see defendants getting interviewed multiple times by detectives, and that's why they do it. It's because the story will ultimately change when it's not true.
Mario, the father of the child, apparently has a struggle with mental illness and is institutionalized at this point. You could feel the defense pointing the finger possibly at him as the only other scenario. Would you put your client on the stand if things start to go even worse than they are right now as a Hail Mary, or just keep with the defense, you know, with what you know about this case, and make it sort of insinuate that maybe this other person had something to do with it?
Well, that's a big Hail Mary. I mean, a Hail Mary, you're not talking about points in a football game. You're talking about years of your life. In a case like this, you know, you've already stated we have a child that's dead. We have a mother that is lying. We have, I believe, consciousness of guilt. She did buy a one-way ticket to Vietnam. How do you not know where your daughter is? These are all questions that a good prosecutor, or any prosecutor for that matter, will drill her on. And, you know, she's lying. You should never, one, speak to the police without an attorney. Number two, if you are going to speak to the police without an attorney, you really shouldn't lie. You shouldn't make up stories. How do you not know where your daughter is? How do you not know whether your mother has your daughter or not? If I was the prosecutor, I would key right in there. I'd start the cross-examination right there. I would say, you know, where was your daughter? How do you not know where your daughter is? They're going to have some problems here as far as the defense is concerned, especially if they want to put her on the stand.
Yeah. Baby Evelyn, when she was first reported missing, Mom, Megan, did an interview, and that the news director of that television station took the stand. They had the unedited interview, which the jury was able to see. And we'll play a little bit. Listen carefully, because there's someone off camera kind of egging Megan on, giving her some pointers. Take a listen.
Let's get into the last time you saw her. Tell me what that time was like and when that was.
Well, actually, I want to talk about that. I've told TBI where to find her in Mendota. My mom took her to a campground in a silver camper, and if they don't go tonight, I'm going to go find her myself. Because I've told them, and they're not really, like, taking it seriously, and if they don't go tonight, like, I will go myself and go get her.
Tell them why they're not.
Don't get into that.
Cut.
Stop. Stop.
No, you need to defend yourself.
That's all they need to know. Quit.
They already know, Megan.
So, I'm going to go back into...
Sorry.
No, it's
Sorry.
okay.
Can you edit that?
Just a calamity of errors, Randolph, and it looks so much worse after time has passed in a courtroom. Your overall thoughts on her just trying to, allegedly, navigate these waters by blaming other people. It's actually the worst of the worst behaviors that people are looking for out of a then 7 or 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, this is just one more brick in the house that the prosecution's building about her inconsistencies, and the fact that this interview is just raw information that clearly she thought that the camera was off or they would edit it out somehow, but when they're recording, they push record and they get it all. And to have somebody say, you know, tell them what really happened and don't hold back, and she's being very elusive with these reporters. Again, it's just one more piece in this fabricated story that she's trying to tell that I think ultimately is going to sink her.
Yeah, she's digging and digging and digging that hole. I'm sure Mario will tell you, don't talk. If you're in trouble, if you've done something, don't talk to anybody, let alone some news reporter. Coming up next on Opening Statements.
And there you have it. Those were the biggest moments from Tuesday. What do you think of this case so far? Do you think Megan Boswell killed her baby? We know that her defense team is conceding some of it. We know they're conceding the disposal of the child, but they're not conceding the homicide. They're saying it was someone else who did it. What do you think? Let's talk about that with our legal analyst guest. I want to bring him in now. Attorney Randolph Rice on the program today. Randolph, good morning. Tell us your thoughts about this case and how you see the evidence so far, if you would, please.
Well, I think it's only getting worse for Megan Boswell, and yesterday's testimony of the forensic experts really probably put her a little bit deeper in the hole with the fingerprint analysis. You know, being able to find fingerprints on the aluminum foil as well as the trash can that was found there, that's really damning evidence against Megan Boswell. So that, coupled with all the other statements and the misstatements and the misleading the police and all the friends that try to reach out to her, it just seems to be getting worse for Megan Boswell at this point.
Right, Randolph. Tell me, when we think about her going to trial, you know, from having served as a prosecutor, many times there are plea negotiations in cases, and as you know from coming on Court TV, we aren't privy to them. After the fact is typically when we hear about what was offered or what wasn't offered. Do you think that there could have been some kind of a reasonable resolution for this one, Randolph, to get justice for baby Evelyn and everyone who loved her, and also fairness to the defendant, Megan Boswell?
I certainly do. And a lot of times, though, what prosecutors do, and I'm actually going through a case right now just like this, where the prosecutors will set a range and let the judge decide. Now, the problem with that is that if you know the judge and you know the personality of the judge and the way the judge rules, the defense will often say, well, yeah, you gave us a range, and the low end may be something we can accept. But at the end of the day, we know the judge is going to go to the high end because of the gruesomeness of this murder. So that's the concern the defense often has with those types of ranges. You know, we don't have, like you said, we're not privy to the plea negotiations, so we don't know if there was an exact number or if there was a range, and the defense's worry of that high end of that range that she might get. And if the range is too high, that's ultimately why a lot of defendants go to trial, because they think, let me roll the dice, see what happens.
Exactly, Randolph. And that may be her logic here. Who knows? I like to speak practically, as you know, and kind of take our viewers behind the scenes and what are both sides doing prior to trial. You know, we see everybody enter the courtroom, but it kind of makes you wonder, was there any effort to negotiate this, especially when you hear the bad evidence coming out, like you pointed out? I mean, her fingerprints on the trash can, all of the lies that she told. I mean, it's just, this is a brutal case for so many reasons. Randolph, what do you think about the defense contesting the cause of death here? We know the medical examiner said this is a case of homicidal violence with baby Evelyn. The defense saying, nah, sudden infant death syndrome is what we think was at play. Do you think that could be plausible?
Yeah, that's something that the defense really pushed the forensic examiner or pathologist yesterday on, because they really wanted to paint them into a corner about, could this death have occurred before the baby was placed in the trash can? Or could this death have occurred before? Now, look, they've all agreed that it's death by or homicide by asphyxiation. But if the defense can lay groundwork or the possibility that this happened before baby Evelyn was placed in that trash can, that may place some doubt in the eyes of the jury to think, well, maybe somebody else, maybe Hunter Wood, was possibly involved here. So, you know, they're trying to lay that groundwork as to the time or when the death actually occurred. And you're right. I mean, they're trying to get it in as maybe that happened before she was placed in the trash can.
Right, right. Great points. Randolph Rice, so glad you're with us. Stand by kindly, please. We're seeing a little bit of movement in the courtroom, but the jury's not in the box quite yet. So our camera has to be fixated right there.
Camped out at Mendota, you want to go check them out, but I've never been like specifically, hey, she's not your silver camper, because my mom did threaten me, like, you know, if I told anybody. I'm not going to get that, but she did.
So your mom has had Evelyn the whole time? Or the whole time?
Or the person that is in Mendota has had her the whole time.
So you believe that your mom took her to Mendota? Tell me why you let your mom take care of her? Did she take her from you that night? And
well, she was just supposed to babysit her before, because I was going to work.
And then when did you know that something was wrong?
Well, whenever, like, she picked me up Wednesday, and I told her, like, hey, they're doing a press release about the ambulance thing, and then she freaked out, and that's why they couldn't find her. Like, nobody talked to her for days until they arrested her. She just kind of poof, gone. But she kept trying to take me to Mendota, and I kept asking. I was like, are you taking me to Evelyn? And she would never tell me yes or no. And I was like, well, if you're not, I'm just calling somebody at the police station to come and get me, like, I'm not playing these games with you.
And so tell me, the day that you dropped her off with your mom to let her babysit.
That's what she said.
Tell me what, was there anything off about your mom that day? Did you have any, suspicion that she was going to take your child?
No.
All right, what do you think of Megan Boswell's interview there? That wasn't the only one she did. And I want to shout out all of you wonderful Cordies at home. During opening statements, my producers and I weren't sure who was next to Megan in that interview. Apparently, it's the mother of one of her friends. So thank you to all of you who answered that question for us. We really appreciate it. She should have had a lawyer there. Too late for that now, and smart move by these prosecutors introducing this as case evidence. Remember, a little legal lesson. Anytime a defendant makes statements, they're coming in. We call them admissions by a party opponent or statements by a party opponent. Remember, because it's the state of Tennessee versus that party. In this case, defendant Megan Boswell. So anything she says, prior to trial to anyone, camera or no camera, can come in and be used against her. It's a wonderful tool that prosecutors have, and kudos to them not missing an opportunity, because we've seen other trials here on Court TV where prosecutors aren't always that savvy to go and get that media and then introduce it for the jury. So bravo to these prosecutors here for doing that. Let me bring in former prosecutor, now he's an attorney in the private sector, Randolph Rice, for some analysis. Okay, Randolph, you had to be cringing watching her answer all of that. Your thoughts, please.
I just can't make sense of it. I mean, she's all over the place. One minute that she went to lunch with her mother, and then took the baby, Evelyn, for a babysitting job, and then the mother dropped the baby off at a silver trailer in Mendota, and it's a person, but she doesn't know the name of the person, but then she says her mom offered her to take her to that. It just, this circular logic and the constant lies, I mean, it's just, this is what's going to sink her, because she just can't, I hate to say it, keep her story straight, because she's lying. You know, when you're lying, you have no frame of reference to say this is what happened. So she's just constantly making stuff up, very generalized, might I know, you know, that because it's not like, oh, here's the address, here's the name of the person. It's just very vague information. And this is what just makes no sense, and why she's so hard to believe.
Right, Randolph. Pants on fire, Megan Boswell, that is for sure. This is a live picture of her. That was her walking in just a second ago, so we're live right now with our video camera. Wearing the glasses, so she looks a bit different. Her hair is much longer. She's wearing the glasses. Looks a bit more mature, and this is several years later, right? I mean, when we think about when she gave those interviews, we're going back to the year 2020. And now, so fast forward 5 years later, here she is at trial looking a bit different, but the circumstance is still tragically the same, with baby Evelyn gone. She has not forgotten, though. There's the judge taking the bench, getting ready to call for the jury in a moment, I presume. So let's do this. Let's call for our break so we don't miss the start of the testimony. We're going to step aside, take that break, go refill your coffee. We'll be back live with the trial after this.
Ms. Boswell, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Stock.
Megan, I want to ask you some questions about my representation of you and explaining to you your right to testify.
Okay.
I've been representing you for a couple of years now. We've met and discussed your case. You need to answer out loud.
Yes.
Okay. And part of that, I've talked to you about, you have the right to testify. Is that right?
Yes.
And if the jury can't hold it against you if you don't testify. Do you understand that?
Yes.
Do you understand you have a right not to testify?
Yes.
Okay. And if you decided you wanted to testify, I couldn't stop you from that. Judge Goodwin couldn't stop you. Mr. Harper couldn't. That's solely your decision. You understand that?
Yes.
And after consulting with me and looking at the evidence and hearing the proof here in court, have you made a decision as whether or not you want to testify?
Yes, I have.
Do you want to testify?
No.
I think I covered it, Judge. Approach.
Yeah.
She is not testifying. What do you think of that move by Megan Boswell? Hit us up on social media. Let us know. I'm enjoying seeing all of your tweets this morning. Let me bring in our legal analyst guest, attorney Randolph Rice, and get his thoughts. Randolph, what do you think about Ms. Megan's decision there?
I think it's a smart decision. I think she gets on that stand and she just can't keep all of her stories straight. And the prosecution's going to lay one story after another story about what she told the detectives and the TV stations. And she's not going to have an explanation as to what she said those days 4 years ago. So I think it's smart that she's not taking the stand. At this point now, it's the question of what the defense's move is going to be. Are they going to bring in forensic pathologists to challenge the time of death or how that baby died? Or are they going to rest and leave it out of the jury's hand?
You read my mind, Randolph. You're right. You raised the million-dollar question. Are they going to present a case? What's that like when you have that opportunity to either just make the Commonwealth or the state meet their burden, or to say, you know what, we want to take it a step further and show the jury something?
Yeah, I think they've pulled the thread a little bit. And actually, I kind of noticed it in Judge Goodwin's rulings on the motion for judgment of acquittal. If you noticed, he paused a little bit when he was thinking about when the baby died. Did the baby die from a medical reason or SIDS? Or did the baby die when she was placed in that trash can wrapped in the aluminum foil in the blanket? And so I'm wondering, does the defense think to themselves, you know what, we might have pulled this thread. It might be resonating with the jury. We need to now bring our own forensic pathologist in that's going to say, we can't determine when baby Evelyn died, and therefore that provides that doubt that Megan didn't kill her.
Right. A great analysis, Randolph. They were so smart to zero in on that issue of the cause and manner of death, calling it into question. And you're right, the judge gave a very thoughtful, well-reasoned answer. But as we know, this is a different standard at this juncture than the jury is going to have to be meeting if they would find her guilty of these crimes. So here's what we'll do. We'll take our break now. Randolph, you're going to stay with us. I want you to do the same at home. Please, when we come back, we will see. The jury's being brought back into the courtroom. We're going to see if the defense chooses to present a case. So there we have it. We have an answer to our question. Megan Boswell's defense team will not be presenting any evidence, and the jury cannot hold that against her. Why? Because she has no burden of proof. The burden always stays with the state. So here it is the state of Tennessee that has to prove her guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Otherwise, she goes free. Now, I want to bring in our guest for a quick reaction. We have a little bit of time. Randolph Rice, before we have to hit another break, what do you think of this decision, please?
It's an interesting one. I guess the defense probably thought either A, they couldn't find an expert to come in and say that there's some other cause of death, like we talked about earlier, either a medical or a SIDS or something to that effect. So maybe they couldn't find an expert. Also, my other concern would be a lot of times if you don't have enough witnesses for the defense, let's say you call one witness, it doesn't have that lasting effect with the jury. So maybe they thought not having a witness would have a better effect on the jury's ability to comprehend their argument, which I think is going to be pulling that thread of, we don't know how baby Evelyn died.
Yes, like that analysis very much. Randolph Rice, thank you for everything today. Always a pleasure to have you on this show. We'll see you soon. And coming up next, we're getting